Christianity is not a museum for good people, it's a hospital for the broken. And when you are broken, you get to go to the healer.
You recently lost your dad within just several really days. And I'm wondering if you could speak to that, of how you deal with loss.
Yeah. Ed, I lost my sister a couple years ago when she was 13. She was born with severe special needs. And my dad passed away a couple days ago. And he had a really long battle with cancer. And I'm honestly still processing it. It hurts. It's painful. But I'm grateful for the hope with assurance that we have in Jesus. And I know a day that we all look forward to is the day that he's getting to experience right now.
He's a good man. He was a fun man. Just a special father-in-law and special dad to Demi. I'm glad he got to meet his grandfather before he went to heaven.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
God loves humanity, and I know that God is near to the brokenhearted. So if you're hurting, if you've experienced loss, I know that our God is near. You can have a hope. Even when it feels like the waves are crashing into the boat, the anchor holds.
Instead of asking why, I hope that I can reframe my mindset to asking where. To say, God, where are you working this together for good?
I think a lot of people conflate recognition or significance with love.
We use people and we value things instead of loving and value people and use things. And we have to flip it. When we actually love and value people, everything will change.
I was carjacked in 2017, held at some point, got out of the vehicle, was able to escape that situation. I ran up that avenue, broad daylight, knocking on window after window after window, and nobody would stop to help me. This young girl, who I later learned was 19 years old, unlocked the little car knob and led me to safety. And all she had was a beat-up old little car and a willing heart. And that's how I got into this fight. That was the catalyst. God can use you, but you have to be willing.
Hey guys, it's Ed. I rarely do this. As you know, 99.9% of my content is free. But once a year, I do something where I gather a very small group of people in my house. I've done it for 2 years in a row now, and I'm going to do it again this year. If you go to maxout2026.com, I'm going to do an experience in my home where I'm going to take you through how to make 2026 the best year of your life, all of the tactics and strategies that I use to plan and organize my own life in detail. Same time, all of the mental rehearsal and visualization techniques that people pay me hundreds of millions of dollars a year to teach them, I will be teaching that day as well. And the other years I've done it, I've had groups of about 25 or 30. I've decided this year I want to shrink the size of the group so that I can get more one-on-one time with each of you. So I'm going to keep the groups to 12 or 15. It's a chance to spend a day with me in my home, lunch, one-on-one time, and group time. And it's not cheap, so if it's something you can't afford, please don't get yourself in any financial trouble or debt doing so. But if it's something you can afford to do, go to maxout2026.com, and I'm looking forward to having you in my home with me very soon for an amazing day, a life-changing day. God bless you. All right, welcome back to the show, everybody. So I've done about 800 interviews, and it's not often that I start out by saying, here's who these two people are. He is the greatest college football player of all time, in my opinion, and she was Miss Universe. So that's where we're starting. Beyond that, let me tell you who these two people really are. I've got to know the gentleman to my left pretty well over the last few years, and he's a 5 times best-selling author. He's an analyst on television for football with ESPN, an incredible philanthropist. He is, in my opinion, the greatest college football player of all time. And I can honestly tell you, in knowing him, none of those are the things that come to mind when I think about him. When I think about him, I think about somebody who's a great champion for Jesus Christ. He's a great man of God. And when you meet him, he's such a good dude. You're thinking there's got to be a chink in the armor there somewhere. And as I've got to know him, he's an even better person than my expectations. And I admire him and I love him very much. He's somebody that I actually look up to in many ways in my life. And in his beautiful wife's case, she has unbelievable work she's been doing. She's got a book that we're going to talk about in a minute. She's a brand new mother. She is very involved in the Tim Tebow Foundation, which is a foundation I can't get off my mind after some of the things he shared with me, the photos, etc. And they're just a power couple. They're just two people that I really look up to. They're also neighbors of mine now, Demi and Tim Tebow. Welcome to the show.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Ed.
much,
Thanks
brother.
for having
So
us.
appreciate you
I'm
and
so
your
glad.
heart. And Thanks for having us. And I love the last time we got together and got to talk and share. And I'm excited about this time and so excited Demi can be with us.
I am too, man. I got to tell you. Let me tell you about their books first, because you need to go get these books. Because number one, he's written 5 bestsellers. Did you know that you have 5 of these?
Doesn't matter.
And this one's coming out on November 2nd, depending on when you watch it. But the title of the book is Look Again. We're going to talk about that today. You taking a look again. Recognize your worth, renew your hope, and run with confidence. And in Demi's case, my wife's read your book, and it's a devotional, is what it really is, a 100-day devotional, correct? Her book is called Knowing Who You Are Because of Who God Is, 100 Days to Unbreakable Faith. That's kind of where I want to start. I want to start with you. The more I've traveled and done speaking over the years, you meet people and they don't all feel so great about themselves. And I feel like the world sometimes can lie to us about who we really are. That's right. Instagram, social media, the messages you get. What do you think, Demi, of all the work you've been doing with this and probably the thousands of messages you get, particularly for women, like what's some of the lies that they buy into about who they really are that causes them to think they're not qualified to do something great in their life?
Yeah, Ed, you know what? I think it's a question that I speak out of experience. I'm so honored to have been able to carry the title as Miss Universe and to represent my home country. And it was one of my life's greatest blessings. But I think that came with confusing my platform for my purpose. And you'd think that the moment that had the biggest impact on my life was the moment that I got that crown, right? The moment that you get that achievement. That's supposed to set you up. That's supposed to make you feel amazing. But I think the moment that impacted me most was the moment I handed that crown back. And I walked off that stage. You come at the end of the year, you have to crown the next very worthy, very rightful winner. And I walked off that stage that night feeling like I forgot something, like I left something very important behind. Kind of like how you get to the airport and you're like, do I have my passport? Is it there? And it took me a year or two to really figure out what that was. And I realized that the moment I handed over that crown to the very rightful next winner, I also handed back my identity, my worth, my value, because I had attached that to that crown. And, you might never have worn a sparkly crown or, anything to that extent before. But I think there is a time in all of our lives where we attach so much worth and value to maybe being a mom, maybe being a parent, and then you become an empty nester and you faced with that same question. Maybe you're leaving that corner office for a retirement package and you're faced with that what's next question. And this book is really based on the truths that God tells us about who we are because of who he is. And as image bearers of God, as we learn in Genesis, that is something that we get to hold on to. And I have found that when we hold on to who he is, it shows us who we are. Wow. And it makes our faith unbreakable. It makes our purpose more clear, and our identity secure.
It's interesting because both of your books are sort of heading in the same direction about this identity thing. Obviously, in your case, too. I mean, everywhere you go, you're Tim Tebow, right? I mean, and I know you were raised in a particular way, but let's just be honest. Everywhere you go, you're getting reinforced because of football, because you're on TV, even maybe because of the foundation, which is something you still do. It's service, but it's, and in your book, you talk about, I want to just unbreak this right in the beginning because it's powerful, about royalty and our real identity being, grounded in this royalty concept. So first, have you struggled with that ever?
Of course.
And then what is this concept of royalty in the book?
I've struggled so much and so many times in my life of also putting my identity in the wrong things, wrong places, putting worth in the wrong places, of losing perspective. What does perspective mean? Just comes from a Latin word meaning to look through. And I couldn't look through what all the world was telling me into what God had for me and how God saw me. And Look Again really is a wake-up call for all of us, starting with myself, to fight the lie that some lives matter less, to embrace the truth that human worth is fixed, that we don't get to pick and choose, that we don't get to pick and choose who's valuable, right? And we don't get to pick and choose when they're valuable. And our value isn't based on the things that we do for society that are valuable to them. Our value is based on God creating us in his image, on purpose and for a purpose, in love, by love, and for love. And talking about royalty, why it was such a big burden, blessing, and privilege for me to write this was started about 4 years ago, and I knew I was supposed to. We were at Night to Shine about 4 years ago. So
can you tell them what Night to Shine is, just really quickly? Because if they don't know, if you want a good cry, I mean,
I was just starting to
I
get
know.
emotional
So
thinking about
please
it.
just tell them what that is. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but a lot
No,
of them
not
don't
at
know what
all.
that means. Right?
It's a worldwide celebration for individuals with special needs. And this was at the back end of COVID. And so we were having something called a shine through so we could still celebrate all of the kings and queens and their family and loved ones. And so there's this red carpet drive through that they're all driving through. And a lot of them were in Corvettes. And there was this red Corvette that was pulling by, and all of the team and so many volunteers are out there cheering and cheering and cheering. And there's a young girl with blonde hair and a red dress and a red Corvette driving by super, super slow. And we're going crazy. And she's just cheering and cheering and cheering. And she's just beaming with joy. And the car pulls by. And I didn't even know that our team in the churches were working together to have bumper stickers on the back of the car. But when the car drove by, I saw on the back of the car and it said royalty on board. And I thought, that's it. That's it. And so I really started to dive in after that point of looking into what does it mean to be made in the image of God, in his image and in his likeness. And we see in Genesis that it's mentioned in Genesis 1:26 and 27. It's mentioned in Genesis 5 after the fall. It's mentioned in Genesis 9. And so obviously this is a so important concept for us to understand. Really growing up, I heard it talked about in 3 phases, that it was relational, rational, or functional. Relational meaning that God created us to be relational with him and with one another. Rational to be logical and thinkers and process information. And then functional to rule and reign and, subdue the earth. And I think all 3 of those are part of it. But I started to get so emotional and sad and frustrated because I thought, well, that can't be it. Because what about all of those with special needs? 16% of the world's population has a special need or disability. What about all of those boys and girls, men and women that maybe can't do that to the same extent? Are they made less in God's image? And I would say absolutely not. So we started to dive into it to really understand what it means. And when you really look into the term in the ancient Near East, the image of God, you see that it was a term that an Assyrian king in the 1500 BCs would be referred to as the image of Bel, a god that they believed in, or an Egyptian king, image of Ra, a god that they believed in, or the Greeks, a living image of Zeus. And so you really look at it, and when in the ancient Near East, when they would have read Genesis 1 and they would have seen that we are made in God's image and likeness, what I believe that they would have understand, it is a royal worth statement, because it is a statement that they would have seen that is used for kings and for monarchs. And now that the Bible is saying this is used for all of humanity, this is you. You have seen this for kings and for monarchs, but this is for all of humanity. This is how much I love you. That the statement that you will see on statues for these kings and for these monarchs. No, this is how much I love you. And then when we fast forward to the New Testament and we understand the life of Jesus, that Jesus lived a perfect life, a life that we couldn't live, but died a death that we deserved to die and took our place. And that when we accept that free gift of eternal life, we get adopted into the family of God as sons and daughters of the King. Then what are we? Royalty. Sons and daughters of the King. And my heart for look again is that we would truly look again to understand our worth and our value, that we would fight the lie that some lives matter less, and then we would act on that we would truly act on that, that when we would leave and we would go places, we wouldn't look past people. We would see people. 67 times in Scripture, it tells us that Jesus saw. He would see people and he would meet their needs. And he didn't look past, he didn't look beyond. He didn't see the vulnerable and say they're less valuable. He saw the vulnerable and cared for them and met their needs. And he didn't care as much about comfort as he did compassion. And we live in a society, and I have failed at this. So many times I have fought for that next thing to really just be more comfortable. And I think as a society, we have to fight that comfort and step into a life of compassion. What does compassion mean? It means to care so much for someone you're willing to suffer with them. It is not a comfortable place, that you'd be willing to do that. But when you see people that are valuable to God and they're vulnerable, then you're going to act. But if we don't see them as valuable, we won't act. And I believe too many times that me and so many others, don't see people the way that we should. And we have to stop and look again, first at ourselves and the worth and the value that God has given us, and then the worth and the value that God has put on all of humanity. And when we see people that way, we will act. Because could you imagine, Ed, if I lost a penny and I said, hey, Ed, we got to tear all this apart because I lost a penny. You would look at me and be like, Timmy, you're an idiot. Like, who cares? It's a penny. But if Demi lost her ring, we would stop and we would tear everything apart. But we treat people as pennies, not diamonds. But yet every person is so much more valuable than any diamond that has ever been created.
You were at a talk that I attended for a group I'm on the board of, and you were talking about MVPs, like you've won MVPs, and you're like, really, I want to help the most vulnerable people going down this road. So I want to flip this just for a second, Demi, and let me tell you where I'm going. By the way, the clips he's talking about are from his foundation sponsors. He didn't take credit for this because he doesn't take credit, but his foundations created these events that he's referencing. And when you watch these clips, you'll see these people that many people don't see now all of a sudden being seen, and they're being celebrated, and the looks on their precious faces, it makes you very emotional. And I have a theory that a lot of times when we get emotion, it's because we see something in someone else that we know exists within us that maybe we're not utilizing, we're not releasing, we're not serving. And so I want to flip it to you, Demi, because I think it's obvious to some extent that many people may overlook someone with a disability or that has autism or something like that, and maybe not see them as they should. But there's a lot of people that don't see themselves as they should.
That's right.
And
that's right.
And it's not obvious, it's invisible. And everywhere I go, I meet people who they don't feel good about themselves. They carry some shame, maybe from their upbringing or a sin they've committed or a mistake or a relationship that didn't work out. And a lot of people listening to this right now are like, okay, I heard all his Bible stuff over there. I'm a believer or I'm not, right? But I know how I feel about myself. And I don't feel secure about myself. I don't feel confident in myself. Do you believe that that's because they don't know where they really come from? And if they really were understood that they've got a Father in heaven that loves them, as Tim just described, is that completely it? Or would you give a slightly different answer to somebody? And I think this is men and women, but would you agree with me that maybe, and to some extent, there's more pressure on women to think they have to be a particular way in order to be qualified, in order to make a difference? Just wonder what you think about that.
Well, Ed, as a believer, I think my opinion maybe looks very similar to Tim's, because I feel like that's the place that in my faith where I truly got a secure identity, an identity that's unbreakable, an identity that's unshakable, no matter life circumstances. You know, I think a big part of our perception of ourselves is often formed by our life circumstances. And that's difficult because our life circumstances usually look like a roller coaster. And then when we attach our confidence, our worth, our value to our life circumstances, you know, that sends our identity on a roller coaster too. That's not secure, that's shakeable. When that corner office door closes, you know, it shakes up our identity. It doesn't make us feel good. When that thing that we thought gave us worth and value is no longer there, we no longer feel worthy or valuable. And so for me personally, I really had to take time and step back and look at, well, where can I root my identity in, where it's not going to be based on something that's temporary, that was never meant to last for all of eternity. And for me personally, Ed, I haven't been able to find an answer other than in my faith and in who God is. And as a believer, I know and I fully believe that I don't have to earn that worth, because that worth was given by what Jesus did for me on my behalf. And that is where my worth can be rooted in.
Same here, by the way. I want to make sure everybody in my audience knows that. Same here. When I was a little boy, I think a lot of people conflate recognition or significance with love.
Absolutely.
In my case anyway, when I was a little boy, when I would feel loved by my dad is when I did something good. I brought home A's, and then he'd give me significance and recognition that felt like love to me. Or if I hit a home run in baseball, okay. And I think as we grow up, we often start to think we have to get attention or recognition And it's an artificial, shallow feeling of love where when we get it from our Father in heaven, we don't have to earn it.
He did it before we did anything.
Yeah.
He loved us. Jesus came down to this earth, took on sin, and he loved us while we were yet sinners. We didn't do anything. He did everything, and he did it for us. And getting ready for Look Again, we got to study with so many Old Testament, ancient Near East scholars, and one of them, Dr. Carmen Imes, really impacted my view, because she really believes that when we always say we're image bearers, it's wrong. We're not image bearers, we're image beings. That when you bear something, you can also put it down. But we can't ever put down the image of God in our life. So we aren't called to bear God's image. We're called to be God's image in whatever we do, in everything we do. We will never be made less of God's image based on what we do. Now, obviously, we should try to go live out in a way that honors him and loves people and makes a difference. But no matter what you've done, if you're watching or listening, you are no less made in God's image based on whatever that has happened to you.
It's so good. I think what happens is that I think actually we certainly don't want to make mistakes or sins or mistakes, but when we do, God actually wants to use them in the service of somebody.
He does. He does use them.
I have to say all the time, you're most qualified to help the person you used to be. My dad helped thousands of people get sober. Why? Because at one time he was an alcoholic. If you're a person who used to not have hope and now you got hope, you can help hopeless people. If you used to not know Jesus and you do now, you can help all those people. Your company, if now you know a lot about mortgages or insurance or how to, put together an air conditioner, and you can help all these people that need it. You're most qualified to help those you used to be. Here's the rub, though. The hard part is that when you live in this world today, and all of this is true, and whether someone's a believer listening to this or not, you should just know that there's a God in heaven that loves you more than you can imagine, right? And that's just a comforting thing to know. But in the world today, if we're being real, it's so difficult to not compare yourself to others. Even the two of you. You set a pretty high bar, man. I mean, you set a high bar, and so even our camera people it's even for me, like I want to make a difference in the world, but I'm not you. And I think people are on Instagram. I'm not as beautiful as her, or everyone's on a yacht and driving a Lamborghini online. It seems like, and I'm at home just struggling with my problems. Comparison is a huge challenge in the world today because it's right in our pocket. It's on our phone. We're constantly being forced to compare ourselves, or we're not smart enough, or our setback. What would you say to somebody who's just in this hyper, and you know what I'm talking about, hyper comparison mode in their life? What's the solution to that, or the answer?
Well, I'd want you to know that has been me far too many times, and comparison kills all joy. If you live a life in comparison, it will absolutely steal and kill your joy. And that's what the enemy wants. We know his goal is to steal, kill, and destroy. And I think part of how he does that is with comparison. That, oh, you should be doing this. You should be on that team. You should have this podcast. You should be that. You should have have that crown. You should be this. And, I heard a stat several years ago that 12% of our daily thoughts are spent in some form of comparison.
Whoa, it's a huge number.
That's a huge number. That means if we're spending 12% of our time comparing ourselves with other people or other things or other stuff or other positions, then so much of our day is getting killed. And by the way, when you go look at Instagram or TikTok or all these other things, there's a reason why filters are so popular. It's because you're comparing your real life to somebody else's fake life. And that is going to
highlight reel.
And that is going to kill your joy. It is going to absolutely kill your joy. And I know I have been there. I try to fight it. I constantly have to fight it in so many areas because right when we, turn on a game, you think, man, I could be doing that. Or I could do this, or I could do that. And it just absolutely zaps your joy, and it'll zap your peace. Because I also believe when we're comparing ourselves to someone else or a position or thing that they have, what we're really saying, even though we're not saying it, it's implied, we're really saying to God, I'm not grateful for where I am because I wish I was there. And I don't believe that you can really spend time comparing yourself and being grateful for your blessings at the same time.
Very good. And I'll just say, Ed, you know what? Something I've realized is looking at social media, having that, in the palm of your hand every single day, anytime, right? You're essentially allowing people you don't know, who don't love you, who don't necessarily care for you, who don't have your best interests at heart, you're allowing them to speak into your life.
So
And I don't even think that we realize it. Whether they're directly speaking at you or not, you're allowing them to have an influence in your life, to speak into your life. And I think I've had to really focus on who are the people that I am going to listen to, who are the people that I'm going to surround myself that's going to point me back to truth.
That's right.
When the enemy wants to make me doubt, when he's planting seeds of doubt ultimately.
do you have that?
For sure,
You
yes.
Because you come from this world. I was thinking about it when I was prepping last night. I'm like you were Miss Universe, Miss South Africa. You're literally in a contest to some extent of comparison.
Yes.
Like that was the
100%.
world you come from, right?
It is.
So how did you, I mean, it's like the perfect example. I also find that like when something's good's happened for me, you've messaged me before. I'm rooting for other people too. How do you do that where you're like, I simultaneously want to run my race, but I'm also rooting for you to do well? Did you have that where you're in the pageants? I'm just curious. Like that's a very difficult. You're in the
I
ultimate
definitely had
comparison.
both sides of it for sure.
Yeah, right?
So yeah, I mean, it was a competition. I think I competed with 95 other contestants, the most beautiful, the most elite, the tallest, from all over the world, and it was very, very competitive. I mean, I stopped speaking my first language for 3 months just in preparation for this pageant. I wore high heels.
Her first language is Afrikaans.
Yes.
Right.
It sounds nothing like English. So,
Okay. Good.
I went to these extents to be able to compete to the highest extent and the highest level. And, there were definitely times where it was difficult, where you definitely felt that competition, where it was a little hard to be as nice to everybody else. But I remember this moment right before the pageant started. We're backstage and it's dark and you're trying not to trip over all the cables and things. And one of the other contestants just grabs me by the hand and goes, "Hey, if I don't win, I hope you do."
Oh.
And, I think that was so beautiful because in that moment, it just reminded me that we are called to strive for excellence. I think the Bible tells us that so many times over and over. We are called to strive for excellence, to live out our purpose. But we can also value and root for other people that are doing the same. And essentially, I think it makes us better.
I
It
do
makes us
too.
better
Yeah.
when we can look at each other and learn from each other, support each other, cheer for each other.
Iron sharpens iron, so
Yeah.
one man sharpens another.
Amen. If you don't mind me asking, it makes me emotional because I just gave a talk on stage about my dad. It's one of the talks that I give. And just all these things in life that can pull us to emotions maybe that aren't always peace and joy, right? And so I want to ask you about loss, if you don't mind, just for a second. I don't want to be too personal, but I always try to ask the question someone's listening. I know people want to know about comparison. I also know that there's people right now that are dealing with loss.
Yeah.
They've lost their loved one, they've lost a relationship, they've lost a job, maybe their dream didn't work out. And I already see it on your face because you know what I'm going to ask you about. And I just talked about mine. So you recently lost your dad. I mean, very, very recently when we record this, within just several really days.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you could speak to that of how you deal with loss. I know where you run for your comfort. I'm sure Tim is one of those places, but I know where you ultimately go for comfort. Would you guys mind just speaking about that? And because it's just part of life, just loss.
Yeah. Ed, I lost my sister a couple years ago when she was 13. She was born with severe special needs, and ultimately it's how Tim and I met. And her life was really difficult. It was really hard. It was so many times she had really painful, physically painful situations that we were in. And it really rattled my dad's faith to a big extent. And there was a time where I was worried about my dad's faith. And my stepmom really wanted to go on this trip to Israel. And he said, "I'll go with you, but I want nothing to do with the tour. I want nothing to do with the empty tomb. I want nothing to do with any of it. I'm just going to protect you." And, God is so gracious and so kind because he speaks to us in ways that matter to us. That's how much he loves us. And in that time, my dad definitely didn't expect this. My dad's such a practical person. He was such a practical person that God revealed himself to him, by seeing the empty tomb, by walking through the Garden of Gethsemane, by, kind of following in Jesus's footsteps in a way. And that was so beautiful. My dad came back from that trip, and I'll never forget what he told me. He said, you know, Demi, for the rest of my life, I can choose to question God or I can choose to trust him. And I'm going to choose to trust him.
Oh my God.
And, you know, Ed, I'm so grateful for just God's kindness and graciousness in that. And my dad passed away a couple of days ago as we're recording this. And he had a really long battle with cancer, hard battle with cancer over the last 2 years. And I'm honestly still processing it. I don't have all the right answers. And I'm hurting. You know, it's my dad. And to think that I'm never going to be able to pick up the phone and call him on the side of heaven and ask him what chemicals to put in the pool or change my car's oil filter or just check in to say hi. It hurts. It's painful. But I'm grateful for the hope with assurance that we have in Jesus. And I know a day that we all look forward to is the day that he's getting to experience right now.
Right. Wait, did you want to add anything to that? I saw you over there crying like a baby. I'm just wondering what was going through your mind.
It's just you should need him more than me. He's just he's a good man. He was an amazing father-in-law. He was a fun man. Just a special father-in-law and special dad to Demi, and I'm glad he got to meet his granddaughter before he went to heaven.
Yeah, we should say that part. That's one of the great blessings is you did get a chance to bring your new daughter to see your dad before his time is passing, right? That's beautiful.
Yeah, her and I got on a plane and flew to South Africa. She was 7 weeks old, but we did it, and thankfully we were all healthy coming back. And I mean, I know that was, he told me it was just the highlight of his life, getting to meet his granddaughter. And
do you know why I love your answer so much? It's something that I asked you about it the first time you were on, but we didn't get a chance because it was at the end. And so I'd like to take the time now at the end to kind of talk about this. And I want to make sure that everyone remembers at the end, we're going to make sure that they know your books again. But here's what you said. That's one of the realest things ever. People do question their faith.
Yeah.
And they do have doubts. And then what happens is oftentimes I think we then feel guilty. I'm not as faithful as Tim Tebow, or I'm not as faithful as some pastor I see on TV. And when we question our faith, it becomes a spiral. But the truth of the matter is that most of us have a relationship with God, which means for many of us, it can ebb and flow. Yeah. It can be up and down. And so a lot of people listening to this today, maybe have drifted from their faith or never had it or question it when they lose. Many of you know, my sister gave birth to identical twins recently, and one of the babies passed after they were born. My sister got about an hour with one of the two boys. And it can make you be angry with God. It can make you doubt God. It can make you question things. In our own family, that ended up where we all landed. We landed with stronger faith and more comfort. But people do question their faith.
Yeah.
They do doubt. And they do feel guilt about that fact. What would you say to them, both of you? I think we should go there.
Well, you mentioned that we're not faithful, and my first response would be, I'm not faithful, but he is faithful, even where we are not. And Christianity is not a museum for good people. It's a hospital for the broken. And when you are broken, you get to go to the healer.
Wow.
And I think so many times these terms and phrases and things get thrown about Christianity and Jesus and the love of God. And we just need to go back to the truth of God's word, of who he is, that we serve a God that is a loving Father, that knows pain, that took on the sin of the world, that took on evil, that went to the cross. And Hebrews tells us, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross, despised the shame, finished the race, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. He endured the cross, despised the shame, but he did it anyways for the joy set before him. What was the joy set before Jesus when he's going to the cross? Making you and me right with his dad. The joy set before us was reconciling us, which reconcile is more than just forgiveness. Forgiveness is a part of it, but it means to make enemies friends. It means to renew the relationship, to be right again. And he wants to reconcile us with him. And ultimately, man, I don't know why God does everything, and I would be a a total liar and hypocrite to say I know it, but I know that somehow God works all things together for good to those that love him and are called according to his purpose. And I know that God loves humanity, and I know that God is near to the brokenhearted. So if you're hurting, if you've experienced loss, I know that our God is near. He knows what brokenhearted is. He went to the cross. He experienced it. We don't experience something that our God didn't already experience. He knows loss. He knows brokenhearted. So if you feel like, man, you've experienced loss, our God has gone through it. And I want you to know he loves you. You can have a hope. Even when it feels like the waves are crashing into the boat, the anchor holds.
Wow, dude.
So good.
Okay.
That's so good, Tim. So good. You know, Ed, I feel like questioning our faith isn't necessarily wrong.
Yeah.
I think it's the way in which we do that. And I hope that I can turn from questioning to seeking. And a way that I have tried to do that, and I failed miserably because just on the morning my dad passed, Tim and I looked at each other and we're like, man, why him? Why? He's 62 years old. Like, he was just the happiest, friendliest, most joyful man. Had made the best barbecues, just so many fun. I mean, he loved this guy so much, so much. So many questions that pops to your mind. Why now? Why God? Why him? And I don't think it's wrong to seek understanding, but instead of asking why, I hope that I can reframe my mindset to asking where. To say, God, where are you working this together for good? Where are you using this for your glory? Where are you working all things together for good, as we know you promise? And that's hard to do.
Yeah.
That's not easy because it hurts and it's painful. And, maybe on this side of heaven, we'll never have all the answers to those questions. I know in my sister's loss of her life, there's so many unanswered questions, but I'm going to choose to trust God, that he is the God that is in full control, and I'm not him. And so I'm rather going to trust in his plan and his purpose.
I just want to tell you I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
I'm so happy for your dad, though.
Thank you. Me
and
too.
your sister. They're together.
Yeah, they are.
But it's seek. Wow. You guys, this is such a great conversation. Let me ask you this last. So your faith is, so I told you, I admire you. It's one of the things that inspires me. Tim, people ask me about you a lot, that they know that we now know one another. And I always tell them, you're better than they think. But you're just a man. And what you do, though, is you've said the word serve God, I'll bet 15 or 20 times in the interview today. Serve is what you said. You use that word a lot. And you also do it a lot. And I think one of the reasons that I believe your faith is growing and that you're happy is that you serve people. And everybody listening to this in their own way, I think one of the things in life, when you feel the most helpless, get the most helpful.
Yeah.
There's a shift. And so what they don't know
everything.
about you, I want to acknowledge something in you, and then I want you to answer it to finish. Both of you together. Okay. These two work so hard. They have every reason in their life to play a lot of golf and take a lot of vacations and cool it a lot. Let me tell you, he and I have been playing golf together. He's on the phone, and it's for the foundation. Their work is for the Tim Tebow Foundation. They both labor and serve in that foundation, and the foundation does incredible work. Some of the work that he does there is that I've seen photos of, and I'll never forget. I'll just literally never forget. And so they help the most vulnerable people in the world. They bring medical assistance. They help. The work they do in sex trafficking is it's unbelievable. With disabled people I want you to talk about the foundation a little bit, but also I know there's a little bit of a selfish angle there. And I mean this in the sense that I know service is so important to you and making a difference. And I think a lot of times we're just sitting there with our emotions rather than saying, let me just go help one person.
Yes.
I think one of the keys of changing your life is a lot of you are listening going, well, I can't help anybody.
Yes, you can.
I promise you, you can help who you used to be. There's someone who needs you.
Yes.
There's some person who needs you, whether it's just to call and check in. I love you. I haven't talked in a while. Are you okay? You'd be surprised. But how much does serving God, service matter to the two of you, and then how you do it through the foundation?
I think it's one of the most important callings that God has placed on us, and that is placed on all of us, but specifically for us in serving the MVP, the most vulnerable people. And I would say it's where God has impacted my life by far the most. Where I've seen him show up, where I've seen him convict me, where I've seen him teach me, prune me, fulfill me. We get to serve in a lot of dark areas and hard places, but then it's also in hard places you see the darkness, but you also see every time darkness and light meet, light wins every time. And you see God show up and do incredible things. And every person, everyone watching, you have a chance and an opportunity to not look past people, but see them and step in and serve somebody. The person that you would drive by, homeless man, the person on the side of the street, the person that is the cashier that no one has spoken nicely to, you have a chance to see them. We were just speaking at an event a couple weeks ago, and there was a red light, and there's a man holding a sign there. I rolled down the window, and we gave him food and water and some cash that we had, and he looked at us stunned, and there was 4 of us in the car, and he said, "Why would you do this?" And I said, "Man, because we want you to know that you're super valuable to us, because you're valuable to God. And we want you to know God sees you, and so do we. And we just pray that you have an awesome day. And sometimes you just don't have to do much more than that. And it can make someone's day." We were in New York City doing an interview maybe like a year ago, and we stopped in to grab a drink from a place before we had to get to the next place. And one of our team members, who I'm so grateful for, because, when I walked by and grabbed the drink and we paid walking out, he looked at her and he said, "Hey, are you okay?" And she said, "No, I'm not. I don't know that I want to live much longer." And the conversation he had with her was so profound. And I pray that she's doing good, but she needed somebody to see her. She needed that day for someone to stop and care about her. And all of us can do that. We can stop, we can see people, and we can treat them as valuable. Because right now, I really believe so much in our society, and I know that I'm guilty of this, is we use people and we value things. Wow. Instead of loving and value people and use things. And we have to flip it. When we actually love and value people, everything will change. Your heart, your hope, your life, the fulfillment, the greatest fulfillment that I have ever received by far in my life is by serving people that could never do anything to help us. It changes everything. And all of us have the chance to do that.
So good. And he does this, guys, daily, all the time. You can see it on his face. It's who they really are. I want you to be able to get the last word.
Yeah. Oh, and I think for me, the times where I thought there's not much that I can do, it's probably because I was right, because there's not much I can do. And what I mean by that is because that's my pride speaking. That's me thinking that what I have to offer is maybe too little. And I realize God can use your willingness way more than you ever realize. I was carjacked in 2017, held at gunpoint, got out of the vehicle, was able to escape that situation. They tried to push me back in the vehicle, said, "Get in, you're going with us." Long story short, I ran up that avenue, broad daylight, peak hour traffic, 5:30 in the afternoon, knocking on window after window after window, and nobody would stop to help me. That was the most horrifying part of the whole story. Nobody would stop to help me. And this young girl, who I later learned was 19 years old, she pulled over in her old little beat up car, and she literally had to lean over and unlock the little car knob to let me in and let me to safety. And all she had was a beat up old little car and a willing heart. And that incident, it served as such a massive catalyst in my life. That's what let me learn about the fight against human trafficking. That's how I got into this fight. That was the catalyst to opening my eyes to what's going on in the world. And today I get to serve alongside Tim all over the world and the Tim Tebow Foundation and fight for survivors and victims of human trafficking. And hadn't not been for that young 19-year-old girl that said, here I am, God, use me with what I have, where I am. I'm so grateful for her for many reasons, but for opening my eyes that God can use you, but you have to be willing.
My gosh, God used the two of you today. This is fly by. That is such an extraordinary story that's the person who ends up saving you that day.
Yeah.
You guys, I just tell you, this is why I do the show. Like, this is why I do the show. Every once in a while, there's like a magic that happens. And the first thing I would encourage you all to do, like, as your friendship with me for the last decade, many of you, go check out the Tim Tebow Foundation. That's the first thing. I want you to get their books, and we'll talk about this in a minute. But if you would just become familiar with the work they're doing, it's extraordinary around the world. I have good fortunate that I'm around a lot of different people with foundations and the work they do, and there are many. These two are so committed to the causes that they work on, and it's real, and it's what they do every day. It's not just some gala they show up to once a year and there's a team behind the scenes. They've got a great team. They're daily involved in their work, and I admire the two of you a great deal. I really do. I what a great conversation.
Thank
What
you for you.
what
Thank
a
you for
great
your
conversation.
leadership.
The books, you guys, go get Tim's book, November 2nd. If you've seen this before or after, look again. We only got into a little bit of it. So recognize your worth, renew your hope, and run with confidence. That sounds good, by the way. And then Demi's book, which I can tell you in my own household is a hit. So that means it's a good one because we get all the books in my house. Knowing who you are because of who God is, 100 Days to Unbreakable Faith. It's great. So thank you for today, you guys.
Thank you, brother.
I
So
love you.
appreciate
Love
you, man.
All right, God bless you, everybody. Share this episode. I don't have to tell you to share this one. I already know it's being shared. Max out your life.